A young man starting his holiday with mixed feelings. He wants to make new friends, but doesn't find it easy. But here, he's off to a good start. You'd think this would bowl over a shy man, but she's so helpful that he's soon at his ease. And when he sees his holiday home with hot and cold running water and a comfortable bed, he really feels at home. And it's the same wherever he goes.
In the late 50s and early 60s, Butlins attempted to broaden their appeal. As well as families, they started to pitch their ads at youngsters on their own. They wanted the boy next door. They got Bob Chalk.
As small as the chalets were, and they were small, you wouldn't believe the numbers of bodies that we had in that chalet. I don't know how people, looking back in retrospect, I don't know how we knew who the hell we went in. Well, we never ended up with who we went in with, but I don't know how we knew what we was doing, because every light was out and there was probably 6 or 8 people to a bed, and in between the 2 beds there was people piled up there, so it was crazy.
You're making this up.
You're joking. You're joking. It was absolutely crazy, and it was all and it was good fun.
Yes, I think we were facing competition from the growth of the package tour businesses in the early 60s. Then we were, I suppose, fighting for business, and we were attracting an awful lot of unattached teenagers. And whilst we talk about the behaviour of some of the youth today and the football hooliganism and so on, it was very prevalent in those days as well. And the damage that we had to clear up on a Saturday when the guests were departing and before the new guests arrived was absolutely fantastic. And it did us an awful lot of damage. Of course, it drove a lot of nice families away.
The girls wore these tremendous flared dresses. And it was either the Monday or the Tuesday, I can't remember, but we caused an absolute riot in the dance hall, and the dance hall was basically packed every night. It was a struggle to have a drink. One of us came up with the idea that we would get a mirror, and we would, because it wasn't lighting on the dance floor, the lights were all down low, but it was enough to see this mirror. And what we did, we got this mirror on the dance floor, and we used to creep up behind the girls and literally lay the mirror underneath the skirt, basically to see who had knickers on and who never. But you can imagine there was absolute chaos, because there we were, like 3 of us with mirrors in our hands, walking around, and the redcoats went bananas.
My first pleasure, well, it wasn't entirely a pleasure because I was caught, but I was discovered in a girl camper's chalet the first night I was there, and I was hauled up before the general manager the following morning. But the ironic twist is that 2 or 3 days later, after they'd left, because they were only there for a sort of long weekend, I got a letter from the mother, because the mother found me, saying she didn't realise who I was at the time that she chucked me out of her daughter's chalet, and next time I was in Warrington, please be free to call in and see them.
Meanwhile at Pwllheli, someone was calling in to see Billy.
Having received the royal visitors, Mr. Butlin presented to them members of the senior staff of the camp. Leaving the main buildings, Mr. Butlin conducted the royal visitors on a tour of the camp, the moment which had been looked forward to so much by all the holiday campers. Her Majesty was obviously very happy to see so many of her subjects in holiday mood. Both the distinguished guests were keenly interested in all they saw. Of course, to the Duke, Pwllheli was no new experience. He did part of his training at Pwllheli Holiday Camp during the war, when it was known as HMS...
The Queen's visit to Pwllheli was, of course, a tremendous publicity coup for Billy Butlin, and it passed without a hitch. The visit of Gertrude the elephant passed into folklore. She drowned in the Skegness swimming pool one terrible dawn in the summer of '62, having lumbered unstoppably to the deep end and rolled over to her doom. As her handler Steve watched helplessly, so too did trainee hotel manager at the time, Terry Rainsford.
Just after that, within 30 minutes, all hell broke loose. Because it's not very often you wake up at a holiday camp and find an elephant floating in the swimming pool. So they arranged tarpaulins around the pool and security guards on the roof of any building near there, because they were, obviously, we didn't want too much press coverage. They then sent for a crane. They situated the crane near the diving boards, but they needed a volunteer to dive into the pool to shackle the elephant's legs, because by now it was getting heavier and heavier. A lifeguard redcoat volunteered, and they paid him £5 for the honour of going into the pool, which by now was a dark brown colour, to attach the shackles to its feet. He did that. When they tried to lift the elephant out, the crane collapsed. So they had to have a dramatic rethink, and they chocked and jacked the crane up, and they finally managed to get the elephant out of the pool, and then they dropped it onto the back of a lorry. All the time Steve was sobbing his heart out, watching every move. They then put the elephant on a lorry, and it was destined then for an abattoir in Boston, in Lincolnshire. And the final word from Steve was that he would claim one of its feet as a hat stand.
Among people coming away from the palace after the investiture was holiday camp king Billy Butlin. Upon him, the Queen had conferred a knighthood. And there to congratulate him was his son Bobby, agreeing with everybody that his father well deserved the honour.
As the Queen made Butlin a knight, so he turned others into stars. Performers such as Charlie Drake, who learnt much of their craft on a Butlin stage, as well as having to cope with a peculiar problem.
They had, on the side of the green there, a big board with flashing lights on it, and you'd be in the middle of a joke, and you had a beep, 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 and a baby crying in chalet number 58, always on the tagline, and a woman would get up from the middle and make her way out there, yeah. They were great times.
Can you remember a joke that you used to tell when that sort of thing used to happen?
I'm probably still telling it. I used to work a lot of one-liners, which I can't, but you know, like this. It would always happen on, say, an elephant escaped from a circus, and he got in an old lady's back garden. She'd never seen an elephant before in her life, so she phoned the police and said, "Help, help." She said, "There's a strange animal in my garden, and he's pulling up my cabbages with his tail." And the policeman said, "What's he doing with them?" And you get beep, beep, baby crying in chalet number 28. And by the time, and the woman said, "You wouldn't believe me if I told you," and it used to die, you see, because they'd forgotten the front. Invariably at that time it would happen, yeah.
There was Roy Hudd, the man who couldn't stop smiling, until one day he did.
We had to do shows in here, we used to do a midnight cabaret. And, I mean, this was 6 days a week, so at the end of that 6 days, believe me, you'd had enough, you know. In fact, I got sort of so bad with this sort of terrific pressure, which it was, they put me in a darkened room for 3 days, you know, in this sort of like this station health centre, you know. It was the only way I could recover, you know. And switched all the lights out and just let me go sort of get together again. Mind you, I came out at the end of the 3 days beaming and bouncing and at it once again.
Ted Rodgers became a star too, but like the rest, he grafted for it.
On first spot, which meant tough as hell, you know, I just about got through. But I always remember the opening there. I think Wally Goodman, who was a Butlins boss in those days, wrote the opening song. Welcome to you, how do you do? Happiness and gaiety are coming to you. Oceans of fun for everyone. Everything to make you happy under the sun. Welcome to Butlins, Butlins by the sea. Welcome, something, something, something. And listen to me. Here, a fat lady and a thin lady was smoking a cigarette. Who finished first? I don't know, the fat one. Why? She took bigger draws. Welcome to you. And that's how it went. Never leaves you, stuff like that, you know. And that used to get a big laugh as well.
Nor was it just on the stage you had to be on your toes. Jimmy Perry, even as a serving redcoat, cherished a dream of becoming a serious actor.
One little thing, they used to worry the campers. They always used to come up to me and say, "Why do you talk posh? None of the other redcoats talk posh." I say, "Actually, I'm not. I'm a student at the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art." And he said, "You could get a better job than this, couldn't you?"
We used to start at, have to be on duty for early breakfast, you know, which was sort of about 7 o'clock in the morning. And that was always fun because, I mean, I always felt terrible in the mornings, even then when I was a young man, you know. And we had a camp comic there, you know, just like Paul Shane in Heidi High. And always he started doing this and it used to get a laugh and he thought this was terrific. I used to get down there for early breakfast and he used to pick me up. I was very thin and weedy, and he used to hang me on a hook in the dining hall at 7 o'clock in the morning, you know, and all the campers used to come in and laugh at this. I mean, they thought it was great, and I hated it, you know. And people still write to me now and say, I remember that day when he hung you on the hook, you know, but he used to do it every morning.
I've been getting these terrible headaches. Awful.
Showtime at Skegness.
He said, I get them myself. Doctor? He said, what I do is my wife has got a big chest, and I rub my head across her chest. And the headaches just vanish. He said, you want to try that, Mick? I went back 2 weeks later. He said, how you feeling? I said, great. I said, I've gone completely. I said, haven't you got a nice house as well?
Nice house Mickey Zaney's got here too, a packed one, as it is most nights of the week. Butlins is still a good training ground, though not quite the goldmine of talent it used to be. But even if you didn't become a household name, it didn't stop you feeling like one.
That was probably the greatest time of my life, the first season, without a doubt. I mean, to come away and to put a red blazer on, suddenly you were in show business. And you really were in show business. The guests treated you like a star. And you were in shows, you were in the theatre, the smell of the grease paint, the roar of the crowd. And once again, the unlimited supplies of girls and drink.
Why did you become a redcoat?
I was the original life and soul of the party type, you know, and I wanted to get into show. You should get into show business, you should be a comedian. And that was, of course, and still is, the great way to do it. So it was a classic entry of wanting to be in show business, and so I became a redcoat.
Can you remember your material from those times?
Oh, yes. I was actually, in the first redcoat show I did, I achieved some dubious distinction in that my first act consisted of some jokes, and I finished the act with impressions of people playing golf. And I did Tommy Cooper, Tom Jones and Ronnie Corbett, and managed to make them all look the same. Quite an achievement, I thought.
But then there were the speciality acts that not even a Butlins redcoat could handle. A Rhode Island redcoat, perhaps.
First of all, I used to have a chicken, and it just so happens that we've got a chicken here. Quite a lively bird. Not doped or anything like that. And I used to come on the stage with this lively chicken.
What have you just done to it?
Well, I put it into a kind of trance, and if you'd like to see it come out of the trance...
Hold on. Is the chicken still in a trance or what?
Yes.
What did you do to it?
Well, I manipulated it mentally in a way that is something just a little peculiar. I mean, lots of people can hypnotize chickens by... if you take a chicken and hold its head down to the floor and then draw a line like that, the chicken will stare at it.
Hang on, is that a hypnotized chicken?
Slightly, yes.
But when you got hold of it in the first place, I mean, you didn't press its carotid artery or...
No, there's nothing like that at all. It's gradually coming round, and here he is, and the moment he comes round, you see, he's wanting to get away again.
How did that act go down with the campers?
Oh, they used to be fascinated, you see, because it was the first thing that I did, and in those days, nobody knew anything about hypnotism. And first of all, they'd see a chicken hypnotized, and then, of course, I'd invite people onto the stage and hypnotize them. I think I'd better put the chicken back in the box. Say goodbye.
Through the 60s and into the 70s, as television took a firmer grip on the scruff of the nation's sensibilities, so it was no longer enough for a hopeful redcoat to try and hold an expectant audience with a song and a dance. The customers wanted the professional acts they'd seen on TV, or something pretty similar. So here at Skegness, 6 nights a week, be it in the theatre, the bars or the late-night cabaret, a professional company of comics, singers, balancing acts and dancers put their best feet forward. But then only the best was good enough for the working man, according to Bill Butlin, which was why the San Carlo Opera Company of Naples once toured the camps, so too the London Symphony Orchestra. And if anyone suffered a culture shock, it was the management.
And they were at Pacelli. And their very distinguished guest was the pianist, Solomon. Now, I can't tell you what work that they were playing, but it was a work in 3 movements. And during the first movement, Solomon sat in silence at his piano, went over that sort of dignified composure all through the first movement. And the resident manager of the Pathelli camp, I suppose he rather wanted to draw attention to himself, because I was standing at the back together with Mr. Butlin. And he walked up and he said, "Mr. Butlin, excuse me, but why isn't Solomon playing?" And Mr. Butlin said, "I think Basil's forgotten to pay him."
In real money, you had to suppose, and not these mock banknotes from which Billy Butlin beamed at you like some South American general. He was everywhere.
Newsreel cameras turn as out come the 2 captains, Peter May for England and Surrey, and Billy Butlin for all those who like a jolly good holiday. Just listen to that applause.
His influence was everywhere too, and his word was law. So watch out the entertainer who flouted this traditional warning which hangs backstage at every Butlins theatre even today. And there was a lot else you couldn't tell jokes about.
I kept away from holiday camp gags. I kept away from landlady gags. In any case, Bill wouldn't allow landlady gags.
Why?
I don't know why, but he had a very good rapport with seaside landladies. And I don't think he wanted to make any animosity or ill feeling between seaside landladies. You know, the gangs, you go in and said, make your own bed, and they give you a piece of wood and some nails and all that. He didn't want any of that. I mean, I got told off once when I came onto the camp, and I said about when I arrived, and I came through the main gate, and I went and had my passport stamped and changed the money, and oh no, that wasn't, you know.
The food, now again, you see, you couldn't do that, because if you didn't like it, and I always got the wing of the chicken, you know. I don't think there was a breast anywhere in the whole plate. It was always the wing, and I could never find my way into that. But you couldn't, because you've got to be pro the company. You see, you've got to sell the company, sell yourself, and make sure the whole thing is good for them.
Welcome along to the meeting which sees us finishing our 6th week of the season.
But some things have changed at Butlins, and no one notices more than an old redcoat.
They were doing something out in the open, on television. I'm not sure whether it was live, I think it was. And the redcoat had to get up and do something with the audience. And he said, and he was working and getting them going. They were laughing. And then suddenly he said, "Oh, shut your gob." And that hit me. Oh, gosh. That, you know, Billy Butlin, you'd have been out for that.
We don't mind cheeky jokes, but no rude ones. Those boys over there, big grins on your face.
A midweek morning at Butlins Bognor. Traditional entertainment for children.
Right
See
then,
we've got.
tell them what your name is.
Gary.
Right, this is Gary. The microphone.
Why can't you play cards in the jungle?
I don't know. Why can't you play cards in the jungle?
There's too many cheaters.
Much as parents approve of this clean and wholesome entertainment, it wouldn't exactly pack the grown-ups in at the late-night cabaret, and you won't find any blue material warning signs there.
I'm not a blue comic by a long way, but I'm not a kids comic, and a lot of people think, "Oh, Mike Reid done a kids show," you know, and they bring their kids in to see me. That's a wrong move, you know.
How risque?
Well, I'm a little bit near the mark, of course I am. Absolutely. I do stories like, I got here a bit early at night, I fancied something to eat, and I found a little restaurant down the road. There was only one fella behind the counter serving. I said, "Give us a brandy, mate." He said, "Certainly." So I said, "How much?" He said, "A penny." I said, "A penny, is that? Or give us a large one." I said, "You don't have to do a nice thick, juicy T-bone steak with French fried potatoes and French fried onions, do you?" He said, "Certainly, but it comes to money." I said, "How much?" He said, "4pence." I said, "4pence? Who owns this place?" He said, "The geezer named Wheelwright." I said, "Where's he then?" He said, "Upstairs with my missus." I said, "What's he doing upstairs with your missus?" He said, "Same as I'm doing down here with his business." But it goes. That sort of thing is allowed down here. I do slow it down a little bit, by the way.
At Butlins in 1986, anniversary year is a year of change. A chalet cull has begun. In their place, no more spruced-up wooden huts, knocked up in some cases in an afternoon. Instead, there'll be brick-built county suites and deluxe flats. 240 county suites already at Bognor, more than 300 new apartments at Skegness. Butlins doesn't use the expression holiday camps anymore. They call them holiday centres. There are 6 of them left now, where once there were 9. Its premier holiday centre at Minehead won't even be called Butlins anymore. It's named for the new season, Summer West World. Butlins, though, is bullish about the future, and they cite the £15 million they're pumping into their holiday centres in a massive renovation programme as proof of their faith in our wish to go there. Our taste for a slapstick, knockabout, knees-up holiday, say Butlin executives, is changing. We want something more sophisticated, and nothing is more likely to make a Butlin executive wince than those 3 little words, hidey-hi.
Some of the things they show, I'm afraid, tend to show holiday camps as they were and not holiday centres and holiday villages as they are today. We had that proved to us quite recently. We talked to a lot of advertising agents about our business, and they did some research onto what people thought about holiday centres, and it did come across there very loud and clear that a lot of people's prejudices were being fueled by hidey-hi.
Butlins are a little sensitive about hidey-hi because they say that it's very funny and everything else, but it's not really the image that they want at the moment. Are you aware of this?
They're totally aware, yes. I am very much. I'm very sorry, but you see, hidey-hi takes place in 1960. We set it in that era because that's the time when there were holiday camps and the sort of life we depict went on there. The fact that they have now changed and become holiday villages and holiday centres has got nothing to do with what happened in 1960. I think people may go to holiday camps expecting they're going to meet Ted Bovis and the potty chalet-maid Peggy, but that's got nothing to do with it. It is a period piece hidey-hi, really. And that title, hidey-hi, was actually thought up by Billy Butlin in the 30s. He was the one that asked his redcoats to use the word hidey-hi, and they shouted back, "Hody-ho."
Not anymore, they don't. The expression hidey-hi is now banned at Butlins, an unwelcome relic of the past. To Bobby Butlin, no longer connected with the organisation since he retired 2 years ago, a wise move or not?
I don't think so, personally. I think one talks about the image is a bit tarnished. I agree it is. But Butlins conjures up a thought in everybody's mind, whether they've been or whether they haven't been, or whether they went in the 50s or whatever. And people will still identify Butlins with hidey-hi and with knobbly knees. And in fact, it's been almost impossible for us to get the word holiday centre across to the public. It's still holiday camps, and it's still campers, not guests. It might cure itself in a few generations' time, but not yet.
This is Radio Butlin calling with details
Of some of the highlights of entertainment
presented with your pleasure this afternoon. It's fun for all the family on the sports field at 2:30, and the Redcoats present Doggy Dorothy.
It's a difficult line Butlins are treading. On the one hand, they don't want to offend long-time guests who look forward to going a bit potty on holiday. On the other, they want to encourage young families, many of whom find the old ways all a bit embarrassing. And 80% of Butlin bookings come from families with young children. So there's no doubt which way they're heading. They're resisting the hidey-hi image because they don't think it's doing them any commercial good. What they must also remember is that nostalgia is a powerful adversary.
Was it New York or Peru? I thought you didn't remember that bit. Well, now I do. Where I first laid eyes on you. Or was it down at Butlins by the sea? Was it Skegness, Clacton, or Filey? Was it April, June, or July? Remember, we met at Butlins, you were the guy. Did we meet at Ayr or Purfleet? Was it there you first caught my eye? Remember, we met at Butlins, you were the guy. Am I going to remember this? And now we meet again, in town like this. Georgie's got it. Can we try again that good night kiss? And we'll meet the summer, when the winter months have gone by. Remember, we met at Butlins, you were the guy.
And then the ending we had, you remember?
No, I don't. Remember, we met at Billy Butlin's, you were the guy. Voila!
A fully illustrated hardback book accompanies this programme. Hello Campers by Sue Reed, published by Bantam Press, is in bookshops now, price £7.95.